Hi guys, this is Michael Mirdad coming to you, doing one of our beautiful Friday afternoon spiritual insights with Michael Mirdad sharings here. Well, I pray you're all doing really well in your lives, and we take this time usually to just share spontaneously whatever comes to mind. So a few seconds ago, something came up that I thought I decided to share. And of course, if ever you guys have a thought, you can pop that in there or send it ahead of time, and they'll give that to me, and I'll try to address the various topics, in mind. And sometimes these insights are really, sometimes there's sort of a little bit of tirades about the world, and that sort of thing. And other times they're just simple moments, of sharing sometimes deep personal insights and personal experiences. And other times just, on deep topics that I think, maybe are just not really well explained out there in the world. So, I like to do my best to share another viewpoint anyway. Metaphysical churches and centers, what has happened to them is most of them closed down. In the 90s, there were dozens, literally, metaphysical bookstores in Seattle, for example. Now there's probably 5. There was a time when everything was booming and just exploding about spirituality. And then it became so watered down and commonplace, it started dying. Metaphysical churches sort of started shutting down a little bit about having guests because the ones they had they didn't think were that good sometimes. And so fortunately my foot was already in the door, and so everybody still had me back because I had a good reputation, I guess. But it just happens, these trends. So please note that in this world, even if you live in a place that doesn't have a lot of this, it happens in cycles. And if you don't have a lot of this, you can envy other places, but they too have lost a lot of that. Where there used to be lots of expos, spiritual expos and conferences, there's almost none now. There's one company that sort of have monopolized the conferences now, and they really take aggressive measures to make sure other conferences don't take place, or that there's just a heavy hand on all that. So conferences are almost non-existent. Expos are almost non-existent. Seriously, almost non-existent. And now I was saying the metaphysical churches and centers have decided, instead of seeing the trend and saying it's time for us to open up and go to another level, they actually decided to shut down, to say we want to go back to the old original teachings of our particular belief systems, whether it's unity or science of mind or whatever. Some have made the change, but most have not. It's really, really bizarre and sad. But most of the groups did not and will not make the change, unfortunately. In the late 90s, I predicted that, and I told all of the centers, from the Edgar Cayce Foundation, the Theosophical Society, the Rosicrucians, Unity, Science of Mind. I told all of them in various forms because they asked and because I was offering. Please get ready, because if you don't make the transition, most of you are going to cease to exist, and most of them have almost died now. They're all but dead, they're filled with the living dead, it's really sad. And again, this is relevant to wherever you are on this planet, because if you want spirituality, you have to make it happen. You have to make it so. If you go to churches, you got to tell people, you got to say, let's speak up and say, we want progressive stuff here and not traditional old stuff. It just doesn't make any sense. But on another note, let me add something to that. The spirit that originally inspired some of these thought systems, like, something like Christian Science is another one of these. All of these that sort of started 100 years ago need to make a transition in themselves, to evolve, so that when the millennium changed, they would be able to launch into it as part of the new thought. Instead of the old new thought, it would be the new thought. And almost none of them, even the ascended master kinds of teachings, the traditional ones, all of these started like 100 years ago, and they act like they're over 100 years old in terms of aging. You can hear the creaking when they talk or think. It's just kind of sad. But the spirit that inspired them is not old. It's God. And it's actually Christ consciousness. That's why Christ consciousness then ignited this thing called A Course in Miracles that could breathe life back into studies of consciousness and so forth, spirituality. But then the people using and learning from, reading, and advocating A Course in Miracles quickly made it an old thing by overanalyzing it and using that old creaky head to try to interpret everything. So, it's like we're just amongst Pharisees or something again. So what are we going to do? So I wrote a book called The Heart of A Course in Miracles to try to breathe life back into that. But I am noticing that the metaphysical churches are becoming less interesting to me in terms of wanting to teach there. And I feel so blessed that there's this light, this beacon, the metaphysical chapel over in Fort Lauderdale. I just feel like, thank God, and again, I know there's another center in the region, Reverend Bev. She's I think a great soul too, but I haven't been there for a while, so I can't speak to exactly what they're doing. But I know she's a good soul, so there's got to be some good vibes there too. But the Metaphysical Chapel feels like a breath of fresh air to me. But to finish the point about the spirit behind these things, it's important to remember this, because you might be into the I Am teachings, or you might be into Edgar Cayce or whatever. Well, it's interesting because in the diary notes of Helen Schuckman, who wrote A Course in Miracles, she was communicating with Jesus, and she was kind of curious, wondering what is all this that she's getting into. She was very skeptical and so on. So she started asking questions about, like, Edgar Cayce. She was impressed by Cayce's humility. But if you didn't know this, let me be the first to tell you that Jesus told her that Cayce, like all of us, did a great job, did a really good job trying to channel spirit to the Christ consciousness. But like all of us, I was saying, there's filters that we use, there's filters. So it comes through not just, we have our defensive filters. Like, for example, if you're, like in Helen's case, she was agnostic and Jewish by tradition, by bloodline, but agnostic by her own admission. So she then, her resistance then and analytical style comes through the Course a bit, because she's a filter. So it's not always personal resistant filters. Sometimes it's just flavors, like, if A Course in Miracles, or if Jesus today said, Michael, I want you to write a book specifically from Christ. My books, I feel, are very Christy and got that flair and that vibe to them. But if Jesus said, I want you to write a book cover to cover, channeled by me, he knows damn well he's going to have to use metaphors and parables and stories and probably some diagrams, because I love those sometimes. He's going to know, okay, this is Michael. I better have some punchlines ready or something, irreverence. He would have to go, I'll have to prepare my best irreverent material to really impress this guy. That's what would happen. And if it came through you and you're a poet, Jesus would come through you poetically. So those are filters. They're not always blocks and negative and defensive. They're just sometimes tastes and flavors, okay? So Edgar Cayce was an amazing channel. His humility and so forth is what really allowed a lot of light and accuracy in his readings like no other clairvoyant, psychic, and whatnot in history, But Jesus did say there were some things due to the time, 100 years ago, due to the time and his own style and upbringing and whatever else. He too had little limits of what he could channel, what he could say. And what he didn't do is he sort of didn't say, hey, Jesus, what do you want me to say? He was an open channel. He was basically dropping into the Akashic records and answering any question accurately based on the Akashic records. Now, the Akashic records, that's a Sanskrit term. The Bible calls it the Book of Life. The Christians call it the Book of Life. But the Akashic records means the complete memory of all thoughts, words, and deeds of every being on this planet or throughout history and even in the universe since the beginning of time. So it's the collective memory throughout time. All right? And then including the future, which the future would be not happening yet per se, but it's probabilities, possibilities, right? So that's the Akashic records, complete everything, every collective consciousness, the everything, all right? The all mind, not the God mind, because God existed, as Aslan explains in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, or the Chronicles of Narnia, which is channeled, more or less, by C.S. Lewis. So he explains in there that Aslan, which is Jesus in the story, Aslan explains that, there's time, but then there's something before time. So Aslan says, I know what existed before time. Illusion only knows what existed when time began. My point being that the collective memory, even as great as Casey could be, Casey would tell us what has been since time. So Jesus throws in a little bit of an Aslan twist when he's talking to Helen and says Casey was impeccable. Casey was incredible. But Casey only answered the questions people gave him accurately, but he could only answer what they gave him. He might have considered saying, let's go ahead and ask Jesus what it wants me to teach. And then we would have had something like A Course in Miracles come through, 50 years previous to this one. So Casey was doing something beautiful, and Jesus acknowledges that. But he was only able to speak by the questions asked. The questions and the questioners, even the moods they were in, would have some influence on his what he would answer. So if they're asking questions about illusionary stuff, he was answering illusionary concepts. He was giving illusionary concepts. So Jesus was sort of saying to Helen, he was answering sometimes based on illusion. Meaning, let me make this shorter, meaning Casey sometimes was answering based on illusion, which means not true in reality. True in this world, yes, but there was another thing, another level that, like I'm saying, these churches all have to prepare to go to another level. And so Jesus says that Casey's grandson, Hugh Lynn Casey, was an incredible dude, I think. It was amazing. And he ran Casey's foundation for a while. But Jesus says, can you imagine Jesus giving a review of you? Wouldn't that be weird? Like, let's say you own a music store, and all of a sudden you find Jesus channeled through somebody and gave a review of your music store or your restaurant, that would be just kind of freaky, right? Intimidating. So Jesus gives a review of Casey and tells Helen, Casey's grandson, Hugh Lynn, is aware of the limits in Casey's readings. He knows that there are some challenges in the material that could get straightened out. Kind of like, take it, like I did with A Course in Miracles some people messed it up a bit. Take it and kind of unravel it, clean it up, and put it back out. And that's what I was saying in the late 90s. And so Jesus actually tells Helen, Hugh Lynn is aware that it needs done. He will not be able to succeed fixing it. Now, if you are Unity, the Edgar Casey Foundation, or any other organization, and you find out that Jesus said, you're off a bit, and it would be great and possible for you to clean things up, but you won't. See you next time. Man, I would just be depressed. I would be like, wow, you're kidding. I thought we were doing a really good job, and maybe we are, but there's something we missed. So if I were the leaders of any of these organizations, I would be saying to myself, we've got to change this. Now, I'm not saying there aren't people that try, but you see what I'm saying here is Jesus said even Hugh Lynn Casey knew there were some problems with some of the translations, and could have taken it to another level if they would have cleaned it up. Knew there was a problem, but he would not be able to change it. That's sometimes how I too have felt, trying to help and implement some changes and upgrades at the churches and centers. But I'm also not stupid. I knew that when I spoke to church leaders, ministers, board members, who on occasion have called me and asked me for advice, I think to myself, oh God, here we go again. There's a routine we're going to go through. I'm going to make some suggestions. You're going to go, oh my God, that's amazing. Just like individuals, like if any of you are counselors or friends and you give advice, if it's insightful, a lot of times people go, oh my God, that's amazing. You're a psychic. Oh my God, that's amazing. And with churches, a lot of them, oh my God, Michael, how did you know all this? This is amazing. You're so clear, and compliment, compliment, compliment. And inside I'm thinking, let's see where this goes. So they compliment you and me and so on. But then, boom, 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 comes the moment where they're supposed to now apply what you said, what you suggested. Oh, forget it. You know, it's like, oh my God, all of a sudden you hear stories. They sometimes won't even call you because they're embarrassed that they chickened out. This is a human condition. It's a human condition. If the spiritual leaders in the world, leadership, group leaders, groups that are leading the world in spirituality cannot get their act together, what are we supposed to do? Well, I've done tirades on this, so I won't go into the rest of that. But what are we supposed to do? I'm saying that it's got to be you and me. It's not going to be those major New Age publishers that act like the Antichrist of the New Age and, you know, control all of their authors and all that kind of stuff, you know. And it's not going to be these centers that are 100 years old. I mean, if I could snap my finger and make it happen, God knows I would, man. I swear. I mean, I've flown long distances and sometimes on my own dime to meet with people because they were covert meetings. So they couldn't reimburse from the church because they didn't want everybody knowing about it. So I've had to do it on my own dime at times to sit and be able to work with people, and gave them advice that I knew was the same thing Jesus had told Helen about Hugh Lynn Casey. And all too often, it's like, it's just like one of those almost, you know, just so close to waking up and putting this in context to us every day, you know, our everyday lives. This isn't just metaphysical churches, centers, and leaders. This is all of us. You know, just as soon as we say something like, gee, I'm having a health issue of some kind, and somebody says you ought to do such and such, look how many times we don't do it. Look how many times New Year's resolutions. Why do you think comedians make fun of those? Because they almost are never kept. In fact, there are statistics about that. Go look it up. New Year's resolutions are almost never kept. I will say this, though. We underestimate the power of the mind, and I don't mean the mind that some of the New Thought people are pushing. You know, use your mind and create what you want. All these goofy New Thought ministers that are out there coaching from the pulpit, you know. They look all cool and fancy, and they've got trillions of people attending and big orchestrations and bands behind them, everybody doing hallelujah. But all they're teaching is use your mind to get what you want, and all that is spiritual tyranny. Humility is how we align with the higher mind. I know we have a lower mind. They don't call it that. But the mind can create stuff, man. The mind. But which mind are we talking about? And as soon as I started hearing more and more of this advertisement and pushing of the mind power, I was always going, uh-oh, this isn't good. You know, where everybody else is going, did you know your mind can make things happen? Well, that's good, you know, because there's a lot of people that don't want to connect with God. They have issues with God, although they wouldn't want to admit it. So they're using some roundabout way to hide from God and use their own little ego minds. So yes, and Jesus confirms this in A Course in Miracles, by the way. You have a mind that can manifest things, but don't get too proud about it because it's the ego mind. The ego can make you concentrate and focus in a way to make things happen. and you can get all impressed. But as Buddha tells you, you're only going to be suffering later, and with extra interest rates for the investment you put into the ego mind again. So, I learned to just say, you know what, screw all that. Hell, just toss it. Humility, man, humility. And I think sometimes, maybe I go overboard by some people's standards about that. But I just feel like better safe than sorry, better humble than ruined. That's the way I am about it. So I think it's right. It feels right for me. And I recommend it to people, and I've only ever seen it work when people understand that humility and surrender is the key to igniting the power of the right mind. The right mind is a key word there. The right mind meaning like the right brain, the creative side of us, intuitive side. The right mind meaning the heart center, which is the part of us that receives guidance from God. Casey and everybody, all these great teachers, the Fillmores of Unity, Ernest Holmes of Science of Mind, and Mary Baker Eddy of Christian Science, and so on and so on. Godfrey King of the I Am movement, all these people, they all heard and felt something, then interpreted it in a way that worked for them, that made sense to them, sometimes stretching their limits in a good way. And then they formulated it and put it out. Just like I do, and you do. We all have our way of translating and putting it out there. But some of us have forgotten how to try to keep it as pure as possible, and consistent as possible, love-based as possible, and so on. So there's different things, to each his own. It takes every kind of people and so on, all those sayings. So, there's something that'll work for everybody and all that. You can justify it that way if you like. That feels kind of cool. But all of these people had an original inspiration, and we have them, you and I, we all have them. But I would hope that that anything I teach could never become, and sometimes I look at it and think, God, I teach so many topics like Rudolf Steiner and Edgar Casey did, that it could easily become a whole system, because the concepts I teach about mastery can run a nation, a world, a country, a city, a household, because mastery concepts are God concepts manifested on earth, so they work. So I know these things could run a country. Certainly better than some other leaders of some countries. No names. But anyway, it could run a country, but also I have books on relationships and this and that. In other words, it could easily become a system. I have no thought of that in my mind. I would never want that to be. If I had to sign my will and I had the choice to say, yes, I'm going to sign this over to some organization that can turn this into some shtick, or whatever, a sales thing, no, I don't think I could ever sign such a paper. I would just keep saying, I would just like human beings to read it and apply it. That's it, human being. I wouldn't want people to make things out of it, because like the Casey Foundation and the Fillmores and all these others, give it 50 years, maybe even less, it'll be all screwed up again. Somebody will say, well, here's what Michael meant by that. Michael said this and that, and here's what he meant, and then people will start misinterpreting it, and I really don't have any interest in being part of that. You sort of can't escape that on planet Earth, but I believe you can do your best to escape that. So Buddha will tell you, as I was sharing a moment ago, if you go and use your ego mind, you're going to pay for that, because you are misinvesting. So everything I've just said, you can hear it, get it, anchor it inside, or you can even ignore it and pretend I'm just starting right now, because it goes either way and it all connects. The human consciousness has all but forgotten its divinity. We are made in the image of God. We are made by God in the image of God. But we have forgotten who we are. There's a great quote in A Course in Miracles. I'm just paraphrasing, and it says something along the lines of, there is no statement in the world that the world can make or a person can make. There's no statement more terrifying than this: I do not know who I am. Therefore, I do not know what I'm doing. Therefore, I do not know where I am. Not just who I am, where I am, or what this world is for. Man, that's fantastic. He's saying there's no greater terrifying statement you can make, because it means I don't know. The little self that thinks it knows, I am a male, I am a female, I am black, I am white, I live here, I live there. Here's my opinions, here's my beliefs. None of it's even true. We made up a self to make up for the one we lost. Well, how do we get that one back? Oh, years and years and lifetimes of prayer and meditation and hoping and begging God, please forgive us and please forgive me, and so on. No, none of that works. It might help here and there. Prayer, meditation, choosing to be a healthy person, that all helps. But nothing actually gets it all the way other than the humility. I do not know who I am. This is no different than a 12-step concept. I cannot do this alone. Why do you think the 12-step works? The 12-step programs work. Because they're starting you off from the get-go. I of myself am nothing. I don't know how to fix my life. Apparently, because I was controlling my life before and it didn't go so well, did it? I've lost family, I've lost this, I've lost that, and so on and so on. So it's not trying to humiliate, it's trying to humble us. And that's fantastic. So that program, you don't have to be in the program to get that it is a righteous program. And I've said this before, but it is a channeled program. A lot of people don't know that, but Bill Wilson, who channeled, of course, the main book and the program of AA, actually channeled that. He went to Edgar Casey, who helped him channel the original concepts of the 12-step program. And that in itself is, how cool is that? How cool is it that Edgar Casey's teachings was what impressed Helen to decide to write A Course in Miracles, and realized everybody is not charlatans in this work, so she decided to channel it and write it. If it weren't for Casey, you wouldn't have A Course in Miracles. If you didn't have A Course in Miracles, you would not have much of the enlightenment that's coming forward in this world. Or we would still be dependent upon the old New Age people, and that would be pretty sad. Edgar Casey then also influenced the 12-step program. And do you know how many millions, not thousands, millions of people have been influenced positively by that program in just 100 years? It's pretty incredible, and that's the Spirit of Christ. And it is the Spirit of Christ because Christ is the name of God in us. And something in Casey was Christ and channeled that Christ energy in his work. And Jesus told Helen, even though the organizations have screwed things up here and there with these different organizations, Jesus did tell Helen, somehow, some of those organizations will somehow endure and make it through. They'll be probably broken down, stripped down, and so on, and learn the hard way. But because they had such an original authenticity, like Casey's heart was so good, that Jesus is saying to Helen, I will protect the Edgar Casey Foundation. Now, if I were in the foundation, it's too tempting for us to be complacent now because we heard Jesus is going to protect us. That's what the fundamental Christians say, and they killed all kinds of millions of people on this planet in history. So I can't go by that. What I would say is we need to get back on track so that Christ can keep us as a sacred movement or consciousness. So I'm not picking on one organization. I'm saying, all of them, they're all messed up and they need to rethink things, just as I do and you do and we do in our lives, to make sure we're constantly ramping up, not tangentially, but constantly open to ramping up our consciousness and saying, here I am. Oh, I'm open. Here's what I'm teaching. Here's what I believe, but I'm open. You keep guiding me. And you just keep morphing, little micro adjustments, how you speak. Just like if my teachings are 100% beautiful, accurate, Christy and all that, I still changed how I teach by coming onto these programs. So we have to just be open to these transitions. Maybe not all of them are for all of us, but just to be open what's right for you. So getting back to it, we're terrified to ask the question, or to make this statement, I do not know who I am. Now, why do you think Buddha said the number one cause of all suffering is ignorance, which is, I do not know who I am? That's very consistent, you see. East and West, Buddha, Christ, Course in Miracles, I do not know. 12-step programs, I do not know who I am. Therefore, I don't know what I'm doing. How can I know what I'm doing in my life if I don't know who I am? But if I am living in this world, how can I know what this world is if I don't know who I am? Especially since I'm creating this world, co-creating this world. So I don't know what anything is for. What all that means, forgive me, this is my style, but I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what anything's for. I don't know what this world is for. All of that is summarized as I am totally screwed. That's what that means in the new Christ consciousness languaging. It's like, uh-oh, is another way you could put it, like, uh-oh. Or, Houston, we have a problem. Any way you want to use, any styling you want to use, that's what it means. There is a problem. The good news is there's a solution. And that's why Buddha said there is a problem. Ignorance, forgetting who you are, not knowing your divine identity makes you then scared. I'm paraphrasing. He says, and Christ agrees, you're scared because I forgot who I am. I'm scared, right? I'm empty now. I feel scared and empty. What do I do? On earth, what we do is we go, okay, and we start seeing things that look like they have something for us. If I feel empty, maybe if I grab hold of someone and have them in my life, I feel a little better. What if I have more money? I feel accomplished. And these become trappings. That's why Buddhism is so, really, they are advocates of not getting attached to stuff, because what they're saying is, be careful. The stuff of this world becomes a trap. Now, it's not trying to say it's evil stuff. It's saying it's not even there. It's a trap to make you think you need something when in fact you are everything you could possibly ever need. So getting in touch with who we are, at first that's a bit of a journey, right? But as we get in touch with who we are, we start to calm down more. We start to have, they call it self-realization, like Yogananda's organization. It's the self-realization fellowship, meaning it's a group of people, a fellowship of people who like to become self-realized. Now again, you can become self-ego realized and have your cool little organizations that are all about stuff, but it said self-realization. My real self. I have to remember my divine identity. So Buddha says, you forgot, you're scared, you start grabbing onto things to try to give yourself a false version of a good day or a good life, and then that stuff that you attach to is going to disappear. Then you're going to be upset. Hence his saying, life is suffering. It can offer you nothing. Now I might sound like a bummer here today, but hang in there. He then says, but there's a solution. And that's where he started giving his teachings. The way to overcome samsara, illusion, and to find enlightenment. And it's something that is not what religion taught us, like a goal. Because even Buddhism becomes a thing that starts making even that a goal, enlightenment. Everybody walks around waiting for it to happen. Instead, it's actually an acceptance. All of a sudden we start to realize, and that's where A Course in Miracles really helped us a lot, by saying, you guys are trying way too hard. And there is something you have to work hard at. Really, there is something, but not all the things you think you need to do. You don't have to perfect your diet. You don't have to perfect your yoga. You don't have to perfect your hairdo and your money and bank account and your kids. You don't have to perfect all that, which is what everybody's trying to perfect. He says the only thing you need to perfect, really, and it's the only thing people aren't trying to perfect, is your ability to sort of take responsibility for your life and hold focus. Like, not just take responsibility, because if you do that and then waver again the next minute, it's worthless. Take responsibility and hold a determination of where you want to go. Meaning, I'm choosing to wake up. Don't say I'm choosing to wake up and then get ticked off 3 seconds later. That is tangential again. He calls it lenient, too lenient to be of mind wandering. In other words, we need more conviction, more focus. That's it. And that's what people lack. Back to the failed New Year's resolutions. This one comedian once did this little skit, and he says, people annoy me. And he goes, they're so weak. I mean, look at them. Smokers, they got to have a cigarette. They can't, it's a little stick and they can't live without it. No offense, smokers. I'm just telling you, this is what he said. It's kind of, funny. And he says, look how weak people are in relationships. They can't do without, so they keep going back. Even though something's really hazardous, they'll go back to the person anyway. So he says, people are just so weak. He said, can you imagine if Gandhi would have had the typical human resolve of, which is weak? He said, can you imagine if Gandhi was a typical human being with all that weakness? Then he would have said, I shall not eat again until there is world peace. And he says, is that the Butterfinger you have? So the comedian's making fun of this going, can you imagine? Like if Jesus would have said, I am here to bring world peace, and then got distracted by the temptation in the desert where the ego says to him, I'm your ego. You're powerful. You and I, we're buddies, man. If you and I hook up, Jesus, you and me, the ego, if we hook up, we can take over the world. We can have everything. And Jesus says, man is not here to live by bread alone. Man is not here to be a ruler of this world. This world isn't even real. Why would I want to rule it? Can you imagine what it takes to be able to say that when you know you can have it? It's like a person who says, well, I would do that too. Well, sure you would. Go get a Butterfinger. Anyway, can you imagine, look at how many of us will fudge on a tax return because we don't have enough faith that we're going to get back what we're supposed to get back. Instead, we have to fudge a little bit. How much we fudge a little bit when, we have partners and we might still look at someone else, but the partner will never know, so it's okay. I'm not judging we do it or don't. What I'm saying is we have that tendency to think that we're something that we're not. We think that we're frail, broken humans and that we're in need of everything of this world. I'm going to fast. I'm going to start dieting. Oh my gosh, another soda pop and then diet starts Monday. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. But we're also not supposed to be trying so hard to do the opposite. What we need to do is recognize, who am I? I am as God created me. Okay. How did God create me? As the light. I'm love and light, temporarily believing that I'm in darkness, in a world where my body dies, gets sick, ages, loves, loses love, has money, loses money. That's not me. But it's a game I play. I get it. So I just go through these motions. I'm here on earth, but I can have a happy dream while I'm here. I can wake up. Now, when I wake up, I don't have to shave my head and be in a robe and do exactly what Buddha did. I don't have to be crucified exactly like Jesus did. I don't have to do what any man or woman in history that was a mystic ever did. St. Teresa, she did what she did, and it's beautiful. St. John of the Cross, beautiful, good for him. What am I supposed to be doing? And I'm saying as a teacher, we're not needing to do the big demonstrations of self-sacrifice. That's external. I said this at our Wednesday night class just started. And by the way, if you're not in that, please try to sign up. We have a Wednesday night online course called The 7 Initiations on the Spiritual Path. And one thing I shared last Wednesday was that people thought the concept of fasting meant don't have food, fast from food. Celibacy meant do not have sex. Fasting and celibacy, if God were telling you, don't eat and don't have sex, that would mean God had an opinion about food and sex. What God only ever would have said is, do these things with me. So fast from doing it egotistically. Fast from having sex with your ego, from your ego. Fast from having foods when you eat from your ego. Fast from evil thoughts, angry thoughts. See, it's fast from the concept, not the thing. It's how you do it that has to change, not what you do. That's major for all of us. My God, there are so many things, man. Just give me more time and I'll keep writing books about these things because, oh my God, there are so many things we got to straighten out, on this planet. And a lot of them are the spiritual things that are screwed up, not just the human. I'm not out there trying to run for politicians and try to correct the mainstream world. That is not going to get straightened up anytime. It's too screwed up, and it was made by the ego, so it's going to stay that way. No offense, and I hope it doesn't break your heart. We're supposed to be trying to live the spiritual life despite the rest of the world. So let them do as they may, but as for me and mine, I will serve the living God, is the Old Testament saying. We're supposed to get in the zone. In a way, don't go and try to fix the external world. Anchor in so much light that the light sort of, my cup runneth over, the light floods over and touches the rest of the world. And they'll get it or they don't. We're not attached. We don't care. We do our thing. We're supposed to be doing our thing, no matter whatever else other people are doing in your family or whatever else. If it's too far gone and too weird, if you live in a city and you're constantly under threat and you live in fear, get out of that city or town. If you live in a relationship and it's too violent, get out. If it's too weird, get out. But don't get out and think that's what makes you right. Get out because you didn't think you could get right while you were in that circumstance. And God supports you in that, because it doesn't matter. God's just only caring that you wake up. And if you say, well, this situation I'm in is too weird for me to wake up, you mind if I go over here to do it? God's like, why would I care? Come on, seriously, go. And you go. But don't forget to do your work. Just like God is saying, if you want to take a pill for a headache, take it. Ernest Holmes said that in some great ways, but if you think you need something, a vitamin or whatever, take it. But don't forget to do your spiritual work. The pill only seems to help you. What helps really is only ever in the mind, meaning the consciousness. I never like to use the word mind because people interpret it to mean the intellect, the thinker. No, the thinker is the one that screws up my life. Not only does the thinker judge, the thinker has opinions, the thinker also is a fault finder, the thinker also tries to solve things, and it is not a great guide because it's controlled by the ego. The thinker is the part of my mind that got hijacked by the ego. My heart and soul is the part of me that cannot be touched by the ego and awaits me, my return, to choose that mind again to be my mind. That's why it said in the New Testament, the mind of Christ. Let the mind that was in Christ be in all of you. So the Christ mind, it's called putting on the Christ mind, like a crown. Put on the Christ mind. Put on the thinker that is in alignment with God, and that's the Christ mind. So we have these fears. We have this lack of ability to know who we are. It messes up our world, and there's a solution. But the solution does not mean fasting and shaving the head and not eating and, not having sex and all that. It means changing how we do things. The shaving the head is a symbol of, and it only needs to be done once if you even do it at all. You would shave the head to say, I'm shaving off my old thinking. You see, the hair is just a symbol of my old thinking. A couple of times, I have chosen to cut my hair off, most of it, the long part of it, and donate it to children who have cancer, and they make wigs out of that hair. And I think, that's fantastic. But I don't do it because God says, I don't like hair, Michael, that's out of fashion, like some Nimrod shared on the web, this program or one of our programs recently. It's kind of funny, Michael, you need to cut your hair, it's out of fashion. It's like, what would make a person think that I cared about fashion? Me of all people. I mean, my God, do I look like I deal with fashion? I wear the same t-shirts all the time. So, and shorts, it's how I live, what I live in. So I'm not into fashion. We don't shave our head to become spiritual and look cool and wear, walk around with beads. We don't, cut the hair for this or grow the hair for that. It's not about what we do. It's how we do it. So for myself, I chose to cut the hair off because it was right, because there's a child who could use it. And it's also a great testament for myself that I don't feel attached to having hair, a long hair or whatever, So it is what it is. But then what about your money? What about your time? It's the same thing. I have spare time. Why would you want to die knowing that you had lots and lots of hours? It accumulates into 1,000 hours, 100,000 hours of your life that you didn't use constructively. I'm not saying you have to join the Peace Corps. I'm saying just even minutes in every day would be great. How can I be helpful? For example, I mean, I'm not trying to use this as a sales pitch for myself, but if you know people that could benefit from this, sitting down at your computer and sharing it with people. We do this stuff on Facebook, and you could go on and just friend or share or like and all those terms that they tell you to do. Go on and do those things. But if you also know of a good book that helped you through the loss of a loved one, like they passed away, maybe you recommend. I remember my mother going through some heavy stuff, and then somebody recommended a book called Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. Now, I don't know anything about the book. I don't care, and don't tell me. Don't email me and tell me about it. I don't want to know. But for her style of thinking, it was absolutely a quantum leap. It really helped her. So I think there are people that need that particular book. Somebody else, it's another book. So I'm not pushing my material. I'm saying anything you know that is good, that's helpful. Be one of those people that pass it along. Maybe you get the daily word from Unity in the mail. Read it. Then what? Do you throw it away? Do you store it? Don't put it in a box. Please don't tell me you stick it in a box somewhere in your garage. Clutter is just stupid. It's ridiculous. But you liked it? Then why aren't you handing it to someone? See, when I'm given money for something, let's say I go and do some sessions, and now I have a few $100s. Great, I worked for it, and that's how I make a living, and I pay my bills and all that. But sometimes there's some leftover. I never think and go, mine. I think I have this money, and I'm at a store, and let me share some of that. I'm not telling you to do that because I know that's scary for a lot of people. It's how my mind works. I think this is not mine. I instantly think about sharing, with somebody, passing it on. And do you have time? Somebody wanted a session today. It's the day I have to travel. It's very busy, lots and lots to do. But they were in a major life, pickle. They needed it first thing this morning. Okay, I'll do that. I have no money to pay you. Okay, let me help. We do what we can to help. That doesn't mean I want to attract a bunch of people that try to use me for free sessions. But this person, the particulars were right, so I said, let's do it. And yet, it's funny because we called them last night and said, okay, you're scheduled. First thing in the morning. So I make it over to Unity because I'm going to do this first thing in the morning. It's early hours. And then the person texted, well, I just woke up, so I won't be able to get there. And then I've done my part. Now I switch gears into done. I'm out of here. And they got no session because there was a little bit of a game to it too. But I at least stepped up to try to help. Do what you can to try to help. Step up and offer a family member some advice. They don't want it? Step away. Shake the dust off your shoes and back away and do your own thing. Take care of your sanity always. Take care of your boundaries, your needs, your whatever it is, always. And that actually fills you more to be able to be more helpful tomorrow. Jesus says in some footnotes from A Course in Miracles, it's even right that you charge for what you do so that you can afford to do this more tomorrow. This is brilliant. And there's some new age, numbskulls who say, oh, you're never supposed to charge. Once again, that's like saying fasting and shave your head. You're taking it too literally. You never have to charge, and you don't have to have hair, and you don't have to eat. But you know what? On this planet, it's okay. You can prove that these things aren't important to you once in a while. That's okay. So share some of your money. If you want to shave your head, do it and give the hair to children or something constructive. If you have extra money, hand some out. Do these things. That makes great sense. If you have time, if you have a great smile, then, twinkle in your eye, you're just a beautiful, handsome, pretty person or whatever. Then use that to say hello to people that don't often get spoken to, just to make a difference. do what we can, and within our own sanity. But Jesus is saying in there, charge for what you do. Now, there's people that want to counter that and say, oh no, that's untrue. Well, go argue that with the Christ, and see how far that gets you. I wouldn't bother with it. I would just go, okay, you know what? It is the Christ, and it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Why? Because he says, God loves you. God loves the people that God is going to send to you to help. Whether you're massaging, whether you're polaritying, whether you're chiropractic, whatever you do, even just counseling or just befriending. God says, I love the people that I send to you, and I would love for you to be able to afford talking to them instead of being in a cubicle in an office all the time. So I actually want you to be able to make a living at this. And if you're a billionaire and you don't need to charge, a millionaire and you don't need to charge, God bless you. Now you can give it away even more. See, that's cool too. It's that you don't have to charge and you don't have to not charge. It's whatever is best for the greatest good. So usually if we make a living doing this, the greatest good is to charge, to make a living, and to do what we can to help people yet another day. I can afford to do so, you see. As you know, these Friday nights, I do them every Friday. I've done them for a while. Right now we have a catalog. They're not, because we have a limited, staff and budget and all that. But my staff members work hard at this stuff, man, and they work a lot of hours at the things you see that come your way. But they have to edit. They have to do a lot to get these things out there sometimes. Some are live, but it still takes a lot of work. And to get them posted in different places, if you do the math on this, just in the last handful of years I've been in Sedona alone, we have, I don't even know the number, it must be 50 or 100 different talks recorded and available on DVDs that you can get, on CDs that you can pick up. But we also have over 100 talks I've done just in the last year or so that we did as a live stream. I have more of these than I have the ones on DVD. We have dozens and dozens, and it's over 100, I'm sure, talks now that we've done live. But these Friday things I do are educational, just like a Sunday talk. But I just do it. I do it because the work that my staff has done has allowed us to reach more people. More people then have been kind enough to donate, and then that makes it affordable to where we can do this more. I don't ask for funds or donations for this Friday. I do this freely. If we got zero, it's zero. We don't ask for it. We don't post, hey, pay up, baby. I just do this. And you should do the same if you have any extra time and whatever you do. Share it with the world. If people want to make donations and if you feel inspired, go for it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It helps tremendously. When I do my Sunday talks and when I do workshops, we do charge, of course. That's that. But I love balance. So I love to be able to provide something like this. And I pray it makes sense. I pray that what I've shared today is partly educational about systems and groups and organizations and what's going on in the world and why some cities and states, the groups have shut down, a lot of closing or a lessening sometimes of integrity has happened, which is another form of shutting down. So I wanted to share that with you, but also how that connects to what we're talking about. Because had the organizations anchored in the light and stayed steady with the light, nothing would have died. It would have continued to blossom. And that connected to the talk where I started connecting Jesus, A Course in Miracles, Buddha, where they said, the reason this happens is because people forget who they are, therefore they don't know how to keep things right. And the last thing I'll share is this. At the beginning of the year, we did a Consciously Co-Creating a New Life online course, which is still available. You can go on and still watch it and learn from it and all that. It's available. You'll see that on my website and wherever else we post it. But in that class, we made a chart of things that we would like to see manifested in our life. Just yesterday, I took mine out again. I actually have it as my screensaver because I'll see it regularly, and that's what I think you should do. But I had a paper version of it too, so I could scribble on it. So I took that out just yesterday. And I can't tell you for sure. I'll guess that I must have had 3 dozen 2 dozen, 3 dozen things on this chart, things that I would like to see manifested. And this is for the year and 2 years from now. It's like I do this for a couple of years chart. The things I've put on that chart for the next couple years, and it's 2 or 3 dozen things, all of them have manifested already before half a year was up. All of them have manifested already, which includes being with you on this show now. So you're part of my gift, so thank you. But they've all manifested. I don't know too many people who can say that. And I'm not saying I'm special. I'm saying that the work I do, I love it and it works. But the people that are involved, it's also the people that we attract. Get healthier relations, get better employees, get a better, what would you like to see different? You deserve it. It's okay for us to have good things. And on average, there were some areas of my life on a 0 to 10 scale that I looked on there and I saw that I had scored a little lower than usual, which is a surprise because my life, oh my God, for the last probably 20 years, I've been teaching 30 plus years, but definitely it improved and improved the last half of those numbers of years. And in this latter time, all I can say is on average, my life, health, finances, relationships, work, etc., all these categories, I would say on average, they're like an 8. And that's only because there'd probably be a 10 for anybody else if you knew my life. Not my life because I'm like wealthy or something. I've told people I've never had a savings account until now, just this last recent time. And it's not a savings. It's more of I try to put aside some money to be able to do some things. First time in my life I've ever had it. Not because of money. It's because of taking the time to say, now I want to do some other things. Like I put some money aside so I can write books and not have to then desperately figure out where I'm going to get the money. Try to put some funds aside. Some people make donations for that too. But I put some aside so that when it's time to print, we can go to print and not be held back. So look for areas that are held back. Look for areas that are stuck. Make some changes. This is connecting to what I was talking about, the power of the mind. Why do you think the course is called Consciously? Because we want to be involved. Co-creating, because we want God involved. A new life, because the old life, I'm done. I'm ready to move forward. So, it's worth checking out. And I don't have a book on the topic, but it's worth checking out in the class. But I'm pointing out that when we put our minds into focus, as I said, Jesus is saying the problem is that we're not staying committed with enough conviction to go a certain direction. We get so sidetracked. We get sidetracked because we forgot who we are. If we know who we are, we can't get sidetracked. That's why it's co-creating a new life. Connect with God, and then you have the power to do this. So I focus, I do the chart, I share it with my students in the class. I put a couple dozen things on there and they're done already. I'm going to have to not wait till next January when each year I do that for myself, even without the course. I'm not going to wait till next January. I got to kind of upgrade, get some white out, or whatever, do it over again because these things are coming to pass. But one other thing, they partly come to pass because instead of just waiting for one day, I chose, my life has been an 8, a lot of the years, meaning friendships were good and health is good, meaning those things are pretty good. A good life, because if you're a good person, it should be. And I know we have struggles too. I'm not saying if you have a struggle, you're a bad person. I'm saying that it should keep going that direction. But last year, when I looked back the last year before that or so, I realized there are some areas that I would say were a 5. That's like hell for me. For something to be a 5 is earth-shattering for me because that's not me. So, and that's because it was I went through a little bit of another dark night of the soul, in some ways. So I emerged from that and looked at this again, called friends to me, some of the people I know at Unity of Sedona, and called some friends and said, okay, here's where I'm at. I'm seeing, feeling, and all of us should be aware of where we're at, man. Ignorance is not bliss. So I sat down and said, where are we going? And they all said, well, we'll help. That is fantastic. People that said they were friends are gone. People that now said we're friends and we're here, how can we help? And that's That's bliss. And so we got together, this is some time ago, a year or so ago, and said, let's start doing some courses. Let's do some online stuff. Each of us was pitching in ideas. And some of them didn't sound like they could be done, but they did get done. Some of them didn't sound like we would have the funds, but the funds would manifest. Once we started committing to it, the universe will provide. The universe, I don't like to use that term, but that's the term a lot of people like to use because it's safe. I would rather just say God. God will provide. God will work through the universe, through angels, through beings of light and support to support you in what direction you're going. But you've got to get going in some direction or another. And if you say, I don't want to go there, I don't want to go anywhere, that's still going to be supported because the Divine Mother will always manifest your thoughts. So you don't want to go anywhere? She'll say, okay, cool. I'll just hang out right here doing nothing and be your life of nothingness. Or you say, I'm ready. She'll go, great, I'm ready too. What would you like to do? I want to start improving this. Excellent. I'll be the manifestation of your improvements. That's all she does, is manifest our consciousness. So keep all this in mind. These organizations can change. We can change. I've come through a dark night. These people have come through, these organizations have been through dark nights. But why are they still in hell? Why are they still dead? We're supposed to resurrect after those moments. So you have helped me, I help you, let's all help each other, let's keep moving and grooving and take life in new directions. I appreciate that you guys allow me to be so bold and to be, somewhat forward in what I say because I know it, I can feel it, I know it's the truth. This is what's right for us. And I don't get sidetracked with, hey, do this and it's all about success or something mundane. I can see through those ridiculous things of life, but I see the balance where we're also still allowed to have good friends. Have good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Do your best to be a good person. Not just your opinion of a good person, but truly a good person. And that should also mean that other people should see a lot of goodness in you. If you think you're great, but everybody else says you suck, you might be off a little bit. Rethink it, please. See a counselor and get their opinion. And the second opinion means I'm open and vulnerable and humble to say, how am I doing? I teach at Unity of Sedona. People love it and they think I'm wonderful. But I still sometimes sit down and ask the board or whomever, how am I doing? Is everything okay? To double check and see, just recently I asked, okay, so everybody, let's check in. How are we doing? Are we on the right course? Am I missing anything? So we should all take a moment to do that. Sit with your partner and say, hey, I know we've been married for 80 years, and so we're supposed to just assume that means everything's good. But no, are we good? Let me just ask. Ask the kids. When my kids were little and, they lived with their mom, when I'm on tour, because I was always on tour, especially in the old days, I would come in for a break, come into the same town, fly in. I would always go visit them, sit down, and have a powwow, I called it. Okay, guys, how's it going? Is there anything you want changed? Anything you need changed? How's everything going? And, it was our way to connect, but also they knew that I was there and I was willing to help in any way I could. Sometimes spoiling them in good ways, but also asking, is there any constructive stuff that we need to do differently? Check into your life. Look at your life because, again, nothing more terrifying. I don't know who I am, therefore I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know what the world is for. Change all that. I'm getting a clue. I'm kind of getting to know who I am. I'm hearing it from Michael and or whomever else, and I'm gradually absorbing it. And it's making sense because as I get to know who I am, I'm now knowing what I'm supposed to be doing. Greater prosperity, greater love, greater intimacy, greater affection, greater communication, greater friendships, greater this, great. It should all be looking like that. When it's not, what am I not doing? I can make a change. There's actually no way that we can ever say we're truly, completely stuck. There's always a way, even if it's not apparent to us. And if it's not apparent, fine. At least we've put it out there and tried to change what we can, then we can accept what we can't. And the can't is really kind of subjective because what one person thinks they can't change, another one could. So the other person could just learn to have the mind of that other person and they would be able to do it. But just change what you can, please. Change the areas of your life that don't feel fulfilling. This unfulfilling is not your destiny. I swear to you, it's not your destiny. I know that. And I know you guys know that. But hear it, absorb it. Don't just go, yeah, that made sense. I agree. What does that, how does that help me or you? You agree with me. Great. I don't have an ego that would need stroked to hear you agree with me. I'm more interested to know what you're going to do about it. Like I said, the churches that fail to do that. So let's not fail, guys. What are you going to do about it? If anything I'm saying makes sense and you know any areas that's off, any area that's off in your life, let's just say, okay, when I forgot who I am, it caused my life to go off. I'm now choosing to remember and bring my life back on course. God and I will do this collaboratively. We will do this together. God knows and will inspire me on how to do this, but I will follow through. It doesn't mean I'll jump off the cliff, so to speak. I'll do my best, though, to have faith, and I'll do my best to step out there in those directions. Ways that are safe and comfortable for me. God's not going to push me and say, you must do it blindly. God honors that I have my own pace, but at least have a pace of some kind. If you're stagnant or backwards, you're actually part of the evil of this world that destroys everything. You don't want to be that. Move forward. And if all you can do is baby steps, then those baby steps will have helped the collective of humanity to make some amount of a move forward. You don't want to die and look back and say, I wish I had done something different. Wish I had made more of a difference. It's really ridiculous and humiliating when you get to the other side and go, oh my God, I knew this stuff was real. I should have kind of participated more. All this sparkly fairy love angel stuff, and I was worried all the time about work, about what my partner thought, about what not having a partner, and so on. What to eat, what to not eat. I mean, there I was obsessing on cans of food and what's on the back label, and there were angels all around me all the time saying, you know, eat what you enjoy what you eat. Just live, be alive, be love. Not be alive egotistically, but be a love instead of just alive. I pray again that this made good sense, guys. I'm so grateful that you're on these programs with me. Many blessings, and thank you for your love, your support. Thank you for your donations too, and and thank you for all that you give energetically too, because it helps carry me just as the love I share might help you. All right. Anyway, many blessings, many blessings. Thank you so much. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.